Hey. So basically, we can say anything and do anything we want because nobody's listening, which is pretty cool. Anyway, so we can do anything.
Listening.
Huh?
The government's probably listening.
Oh, the government's probably listening, yeah. So this is about Rebekah Rong. And, I'm trying to figure out how they in general, young earth creationists and intelligent designers, and Rebekah in particular, how they think. And she did a really, long video, and she's talking to Nestle. And there's a whole bunch of, I have 170 some bookmarks on this video. And every point is sort of a curious thing about the differences between what she sees when she reads a paper and what I see when I read a paper. And
that's really not 170 bookmarks. It's an old Reader's Digest condensed book.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, this whole thing with methodological naturalism, and I talked about it a little bit yesterday in a real short video, which I really wish somebody would watch because and comment on it, because I am trying to get my mind around some of these concepts myself. And one of the big things that I pointed out in that video that I really want to scream from the top of the rooftops is that every single living organism, every one of them, even ants, okay, rely on methodological naturalism. They never look. Basically, when a raccoon tries to open a door, the raccoon doesn't expect a miracle to open the door. The raccoon doesn't expect the door to suddenly start behaving in magical manner or something weird going on. And when you get out of bed in the morning and you put your pants on, you rely, like every single other living organism relies on this consistency of physical laws and the natural universe. So when we try to understand something, we're trying to understand it via methodological naturalism. Now, does that mean that we don't have some other woo idea that maybe consciousness is, supernatural or something like that? No, so it doesn't right away go to metaphysical naturalism, where you believe everything is natural. And I don't like that. Like physicalism, they will say, oh, well, you believe everything's physical. It's like, no, I don't have to make that claim. So I can kind of use a methodological physicalism, and that I can say that everything I have encountered so far in my life has been physical and natural. And I have absolutely no reason to believe that things are not going to behave in a natural manner by physical laws tomorrow, just like they are today. I have absolutely no reason to believe any differently. Okay? So we've got this, what is this? ChatGPT did this for me here, where you have scientific gap with methodological naturalism. So we're talking about things we don't know, basically here. And supernatural gap, abandoning methodological naturalism. So the domain, physics and chemistry remain valid. And for supernatural, they believe that natural law could, in principle, suddenly be suspended, and that happens. And what they have to explain to me is why it happens so little. That you'll get a report of blood coming out of some statue in South America, and it's a miracle. And it's like, well, that's one little thing out of an astronomical number of events in the world that didn't make it on the news, right? That are all being
statues didn't cry tears.
A lot of statues didn't cry tears.
Mary didn't cry tears.
Yeah. Yep. So our constraints are continuity, conservation laws, and observable consequences. Causality. We look at causality.
Right.
And they have none. Arbitrary intervention is possible. So there's nothing to prevent them from saying that, oh, God did the genome this way because God wanted to. It's just,
as I wanted.
falsifiability, future evidence can close or refute. Now, in evolution, it's hard to figure out exactly what that would be. And I think the example I used in that little video yesterday was if a banana gave birth to a cat, then we would say, oh, evolution is false. If we had some bananas and we had them in a container in a laboratory, the next morning we came there were a bunch of little kittens and mama banana, and they were like trying to lick the banana. And we'd say, oh my God, let's do this again. And we'd put more bananas in somewhere and they'd do it again. Or would they? Maybe they just do it like one every 100 times or every 1,000 times we did that. But you can imagine if that did happen, how many millions of experiments we'd be doing around the world trying to reproduce those results.
Examining the banana genome like never before.
Yeah. Yep. So it's the creationists that believe that bananas give birth to cats, not us.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they have no possible disconfirmation because every evidence is for them evidence for God because they say so. And that's about it.
Well, Dr. Dan, in his discourse with Robert Stadler, came to the same conclusion. Yep. He said, came to the point where the guy said, there's no way anything would make you conclude that your theory is false because he wants God to be real so bad and he wants evolution to be untrue so bad. Well, if there's nothing that can ever disconfirm your belief or your theory, then this is last Thursdayism. You have no way of saying we weren't all created last Thursday and we just were created to feel and remember and think for the last 30 to 60 years.
And there's no reason for us to believe that we weren't created last Thursday and next Wednesday we're going to go back to last Thursday again and we're going to repeat it over and over again. We have no way right now today of knowing that is not happening because supernatural can do anything. And that's where I have came up with this thing that basically metaphysics is this all-encompassing thing that you can make up any story you want, make it up out of whole cloth, and make it fit the evidence, basically. So, like you could say, brain in a vat. That's why I think I'm experiencing Scott right now, because somebody's feeding the Scott information into a vat, and Scott doesn't exist. And Scott, I hope you object. But then, of course, the vat would say that, wouldn't it? It would
the brain of the vat. Of course, I would say I don't think any brain in a vat would bother to create an illusion of me. We have a Jaspir. I have no idea how to pronounce that one. Jaspir? We can say Jaspir. We have somebody. Hello. Maybe we'll get a phonetic spelling or something on how to pronounce that.
Yeah, we want to pay attention to chat a little bit. So anyway, I've been over and over in this video, she complains that evolutionists assume evolution before they start doing their work. Now, I don't think that's true. What we assume is that nature is going to behave in a law-like manner. Oh, Jasper. Okay. Jasper.
There's no reason to think that the basic laws, fundamental laws of physics weren't the same 10,000 to 100 million years ago as they are today.
Right. And if they aren't, what are we doing? What are we doing? What kind of science are we trying to do? I mean, we're trying to detect natural or detect the supernatural? Well, like I say, put some bananas in a box and see if they give birth to a cat. It's or whatever experiment you want to try. Pray on it, whatever. Anyway, so that make a lot of sense to me. And I think, let's see what I have on slide 2 here. Okay, so she goes on. Let me see. We'll go to intentional language, and I'll go ahead and put the video up for a minute. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. What happened to my video? It went away. Oh, no, there it is. Yeah. Why aren't you responding? Why aren't you responding?
Who? Talk about me?
No, my video is not coming up for some reason. Okay, we'll try this, and then we'll try that. Okay, there we go. So she's talking to Nestling, and Nestling is just so wonderful with her, and does such a heroic job of trying to be patient with her and trying to explain to her what all this is about.
I wonder
And
what
oftentimes,
Nestling says about Americans over there in.
Oh my God, probably ain't good.
Because he's encountered so many creationists and
Right.
fundamentalists.
Yeah, there were a lot of times where he was. You could just hear him trying to swallowing his tongue, just trying to What did she just say? She says this.
Often using like intentional language to describe the functions of, like, for example.
Oh, maybe I gotta go back one. What did I do?
The one thing about Rebekah's videos that I've noticed is she really doesn't present anything original or unique. Maybe she does it in the language of reading papers and things, but the complaints are as old as the hills, and they've been refuted millions of times. And this looking for intentionality in things is just vibes. It's not, it can be explained in materialistic terms, which is all science can do. And if you want to inject your belief into it, fine, but you're not doing science, and you're not increasing scientific competency in your viewership.
Right, and she does that over and over again. She goes through scientific papers and she says, "Oh, none of this is science; it's all storytelling." So those are the big key points that we have to address with Rebekah, is that she thinks a hypothesis is just a story, and we pulled it out of our butts, and we're just telling a story. And she puts those in pink, and then she puts the other stuff in green. Where she says the paper is doing science, and then she only reads 2 paragraphs, and then she abandons the paper, and that's the end of it. So anyway, but maybe it starts right here. Let's see. She's talking about ERV.
And so Nestling critiqued me and Dr. Hunter's last presentation on ERVs, and we realized that we did make an error. And so I'm so happy that you did that, because I don't want to be giving any false information, and we did edit it based on your correction. I know some of the arguments you made, I didn't really see a problem with what we said. I mean, obviously you have a difference of opinion.
We can discuss that. To take the time to discuss it point by point. So of course, I don't want to, right now, I don't want to bulldoze you with all these points about ERVs. We can, more specifically, we can discuss the topic that you.
I'm happy to discuss any topic that you want to discuss. Okay.
Right, so one of the things you said at the beginning about scientists are often using intentional language to describe the functions of, for example, these proteins. They recognize these sites where the spliceosome cut and paste the introns out of the messenger RNA, right? So, and I'm more like, well, you're taking these things a bit too literally. Like, for example, we describe hydrophobic and hydrophilic interactions at the molecular level. We aren't saying that these molecules are like afraid or loving water, right? Even though we use the term hydrophobic and hydrophilic, we are actually saying that these molecules have a mind and that they are actually emotionally afraid or emotionally attracted to water, right? So it's a quirky thing of language where we have these metaphorical meanings laid on top of one another. So that's one of the things I want to caution you against, taking things too literally regarding those things.
Right. And you're giving a good example of one that I wouldn't take too literally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But
Okay, now that's interesting. Hydrophobic and hydrophilic, she would not take too literally. Now, why is that? those are Greek word roots, right? So when scientists use Greek word roots instead of saying water loving or water hating, right away, you're changing your mind into a more technical area where you're going to see it as, oh yeah, they're talking about chemistry. They're not talking about emotion, right? So I think that's what's going on there.
Yeah.
But she goes on.
What I've noticed is in every single paper that I've read about evolutionary processes, they use this language in stronger ways than, you know, the example you gave,
right?
But
Why?
Ways that are inseparable from the idea of a goal. So,
yeah, those authors don't.
That is a problem. Don't
subscribe to a goal. They're using it analogically. They're not using it to think, well, there's an intention here.
Yeah,
you know, it's analogical language, and it's the way you would describe animals wanting to do this or having to do this. We don't know what's in their mind, and so we describe it in human terms. She's anthropomorphizing a process, and in a way, a lot of those papers that do this are I don't want to say anthropomorphizing, but they're using language that people can relate to better. It's very clumsy to put things in mechanistic ways. It's like whenever you're criticized in an English paper for using the passive voice too many times, it's a pain in the ass to go back and edit it to make everything active voice.
Yeah,
it's just a pain to put it in the stricter, more literalistically correct way in dealing with terms of blind processes. It's easier because we're humans, because of human language, to use the language of intentionality. She's implying, or she's just outright saying, that even evolutionists think it's intentional, which is not which is the case. Yeah. And she's just basically saying too that just by observing something doing something, you can conclude accurately intentionality, which, like I said before, if she were to look at an electron microscope somehow of a spark going off in a cloud of hydrogen and oxygen, she would think that the oxygen intends to bond with the hydrogen.
Right.
But that's just a chemical process, and it happens fast, so you think it's intentional. If you observe.
I'm going to jump ahead to this just in because it's complicated. Well, one of the words is recognize, that she doesn't like, and there's some history here, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, and Mershad makes an interesting point. He says, but molecular interaction needs to be regulated, which ultimately leads you to design language. But this is the exact point. What's doing the regulating? In order to regulate, there has to be someone who set the system up. There has to be, there has to be a regulation system. There
has to be a department of regulation in order for there to be
a regulation system is different from there being a regulator.
And it's like, what the hell? Okay, let's see. Okay, if I remove that, it's going to go away. So if I go here, and okay, so yeah, now I'm back. So now I can go to full screen, and that's going to pop up. So now what happened is in the 1950s, we started to understand proteins and enzymes. Okay, and when we understood proteins, they drew these little diagrams that kind of went like this. They had a little block, and then they had like a little. And then they had that. And then they showed another protein right here that kind of fit into it, right? And so they had this diagram, right? And then they called that basically one enzyme recognizing another. And so in the 1950s, it became common in biology papers and biology language to use these intentional terms that she's talking about. And it was because it really explains what is happening. You know, that imagine these are two puzzle pieces, and you're saying, oh, well, how does that puzzle piece recognize the other puzzle piece? How does that happen, Scott? I don't get it. I mean, why do puzzle pieces fit together like that? It just doesn't make sense without it. You know, well, of course, we have an intentional puzzle designer, right? But in proteins, we don't have the intentionality. We just have the fact that there are some proteins that fit. Now, if you look at two rocks laying together in a pile, okay, and there's a big long rock like that, and then there's another big long rock like that, you know, that kind of lays alongside of it. Did somebody design that in an avalanche? You know, an avalanche, you're going to have rocks that are going to end up packed in a certain manner. And that's all that's going on here is packing, you know.
You might have four upright rocks that hold up a big flat rock, and they just dropped into place due to, you know, stochasticity or you know, just random placement.
Yeah, we've got these little groups, you know, that are basically OH groups with hydrogen on them and other hydrogens in different, you know, configurations.
People come up with these conspiracy theories or ancient aliens kind of theories about these, you know, rock formations that, you know, look like they've been hewn out of a quarry or something and placed there, when in fact, you know, the geologists will tell you, no, these occurred due, you know, in the presence of heat and pressure, and you know, some cracking occurred, and geometrically they began to appear like, you know, upright beams or columns, but they're not. They are beams and columns, but they weren't created by some ancient alien race or magic guided process. It was just a geological process due to heat and pressure, magnetism. Yeah. And so,
yeah. And if we drop magnets down together, right, and these like repel each other, basically. Oh my God. Okay. These repel each other and these stick together, right? Yeah. Basically, we drop magnets on it. That's all that's going on here is these hydrogens, these OH groups become a little magnetic, and there's there's a negative and there's a positive, and they fit together, and in that manner they recognize each other. And we started to understand, like when they first mapped out the hemoglobin protein, we understood that there were these really complicated shapes of these proteins, and they had all these nooks and crannies where things could fit together like puzzle pieces, and they came up with this language of recognition. And of course, there's a whole bunch more language like recognize, sense, signal, repair, recruit, target, and proofread that are all metaphorical verbs of convenience. They express complex causal processes in the manageable sentences. When a paper says the ribosome recognizes the start codon, the authors are not implying that the ribosome is conscious or goal-oriented, or that somebody designed this. They mean under certain physical conditions, the structure of the ribosome interacts specifically with the start codon sequence. And that's because of this certain magnetic pattern, this pattern of magnets that are on proteins that makes one recognize the other. And now Rebekah's screaming in the background, oh, but how did natural selection do that? Well, that's a whole nother talk, and we can get there.
But. So here we're going from just seeing intentionality where there is none, which is an old common fallacy that goes way back to the 70s and 80s among creationists. Now we're going to incredulity. I'm so incredulous as to how this could happen. I'm no longer going to entertain the scientific explanations. I'm going to accuse them of being goal-oriented or teleological.
Right. Because they're using the language.
Because of their language,
so, yeah. And it's a custom, and it's a very, very, once you realize what's going on with two proteins connecting to each other and sticking to each other, once you realize that stickiness and you understand the molecular biology, you can shortcut it and say it recognizes it. It's just that goddamn simple. And she doesn't get that. It's really weird. Teleology is end purpose, and that implies foresight or intention or an agent. Hang on a second. Okay, and teleonomy was coined by Ernst Marr. Describes goal-directed appearance, not reality, but appearance produced by natural selection. Systems look purposeful because only those variants that achieve the function survive. So that natural selection filters what gives things this idea of it was purposely designed. It was put together a little tiny piece at a time until things fit. I mean, the puzzle is either going to go together or it's not. Now, if you randomly throw down a bunch of puzzle pieces, obviously you're not going to end up with a full, working, connecting puzzle. But if you take one piece at a time and you carefully, you come up with, say, a random group of 1,000 pieces, and you figure out which piece is going to fit into that one little piece at a time. And at every stage, you have a viable living organism. That's the important part. But that's getting a little far afield. But the natural selection thing is often misunderstood about what exactly happens. They think that all the puzzle pieces got thrown down at once. They don't see this incremental design, how things occurred in increments or whatever. So anyway, function without foresight is teleonomy. So teleonomy is a good word to replace teleology. Let's see, those words don't imply design any more than saying a key recognizes a lock implies consciousness, right? Your key is going to recognize, your house key is going to recognize your house door. Natural selection builds that compatibility. Our language just hasn't evolved a less anthropomorphic vocabulary for it. And it's that goddamn simple. Rebekah. Anyway. But she would scream, "Oh, natural selection, how can you do that?" Yeah, but that's the exact point. What's doing the regulating? In order to regulate, there has to be someone who set the system up. Really? Does there really have to be
someone?
That
don't fall flat are the ones that have the regulatory elements. So therefore, you don't see or feel or hear of the failed systems because they've probably been cannibalized for parts.
Yeah. And the misunderstanding comes from this, the misunderstanding of natural selection in that they consider basically we have all of these extant animals, right? And they're very, very complicated animals today, right? And they have all these different tiny little parts and organs and livers and all that shit. And let's see. Okay, it's a neat little spooky animal right there. And what they're not understanding is that when you go back to these common ancestors, okay, these things are much simpler systems. And we go all the way back to when we just have one cell, So we've got like very, very simple single-celled systems that don't need all of this interaction, this complexity. So as we move up this scale in natural, but the thing is that the cells had to basically, well, if we start at the first cells, the cells had to they had to survive, right? In order to reproduce, they had to survive. So we had all these, for 2 billion years, we had all these different kinds of cells that were basically knocking out their own survival. And then when they started sticking together, they did so in very, very simple systems. And they started creating multicellular animals because they developed the stickiness between the cell membranes, and they got a little more complicated. And then as we went along, we ended up with the situation where there were little seals or holes. A seal is SOEL, basically a chamber. These little holes. And oh my God, stop it. Stop doing that to me. I don't know why it keeps switching. And then on the inside here, okay, of this multicellular colony, these cells on the inside ended up being in a different environment than the cells on the outside. And they started to differentiate, basically. And then from that, very, very simple organs formed, and it went forward. So what they don't understand about natural selection is that at every step of the way, there has to be the production of a viable organism. And of course, billions of years, and they're going to complain about that. But that's another, geology discussion. So anyway, where else? What we got? Yeah, and she, let's see, what else does she have? So look at the trees. So that's at about 220. And I think we'll wrap it up after this. What do you think? Let's just go to this part here. This is where she's talking to Big Bad Mama. And they also do a really good job of dealing with Rebekah and trying to help her out. Let's see, marsupials. Okay, look at the trees. Call this a look at the trees section. Let's see here. Why is it doing this to me again? Okay.
That's why evolution has brought people to nonsense conclusions. And this is not a problem.
Isn't that great? Big Bad Mama just laughs. It's like she says like the most ridiculous thing that all of those PhD scientists out there that have spent their entire lives honing their knowledge base have come to these nonsense conclusions. And Big Bad Mama just and that laugh came up 2 or 3 times in this discussion from Big Bad Mama. I thought it was excellent.
It is true. Absolute nonsense. Because
you guys
are trying to group animals together by similarities and say they developed in such and such a way. But the problem is your trees don't work. They don't work morphologically. The genetic with the morphological don't work. The protein with all the trees contradict each other. There's no nice, neat tree of development.
And that's complete bullshit. The trees.
She tells untruths all throughout her videos. That list she made of things that disprove evolution. Systems can't be built without intentionality or something like that. That dinosaurs don't have any predecessors when we have found, archaeosaurs.
Yeah,
the transitional forms between archaeosaur and dinosaur. She's just wrong on so many levels that no wonder people don't bother to get on and talk to her, because she's the problem. She can't be talked to.
Yeah, she's got like 500 views on this video, and people are listening.
Because there's a lot of people that want their beliefs to be affirmed by somebody with a strong voice.
The genetic with the morphological don't work. She sounds like Trump for a minute there.
Yeah.
The protein with that all the trees contradict each other. There's no nice, neat tree of development. Yeah, there is. The trees do not contradict each other. Now we look at Evo developmental biology, and between, we can see the phylogenetic structure in development across the extant species today. So then we go and we look at them morphologically, and we can put them into this, rough with morphologically, how things look to us, basically. From the outside, some things like marsupial mice look like regular mice, even though they're 150 million years apart, that sort of thing. And she gets into that too. But there's morphologically, we can look deeply into the organism, and we will find that phylogeny imprinted everywhere. We'll find those hip bones in whales, things like that. And then we look at the genetics, and we find all of these really good, unbelievably well-developed trees of development between protein families. And then every now and then we'll find something that's a little bit off in one, like you know, when they do these phylogenies, like you're looking into this insect family, and then you're looking into the genus, and all of a sudden you'll have two entomologists fighting with each other about how things fit, and each one will seem to have genetic information, and it's like, yeah, at that fine level, these biologists are still fighting it out, but at the macro level, no. These trees work, Rebekah. You're going to have to come up with a really good example of a tree that doesn't work. And you're going to have to do it in genetic detail and show it to me. That sort of thing. Because it just ain't the case. And what I was saying about morphology, she claims that, you know, there's no, you know, the marsupial mouse looks, you know, it's God, how did that happen? The marsupial mouse looks the same as the regular mice running around in Germany, right? Well, when you look into all of these things, these details of how these are called processes, basically, on these bones. Like that would be a process. That little bump would be a process. And then there's, you know,
like
there's
the thing at the end of your sternum, that when you're doing CPR, you want to make sure you don't break it off and have it puncture the liver, is called the xiphoid process. But it's just a little hunk of cartilage or bone that's sharp enough that it can kill you if you're not careful and you perform CPR the wrong way. Right.
And this is a very generic bone. But what happens is they look at all of these processes between the marsupial mouse and the German mouse or house mouse, and they will find all of these differences. Like, for instance, the skull of the marsupial mouse develops very differently than the house mouse, right? And if you look at, I forget what there's a big list of things that are very, very different. So it's obviously not a mouse. It's a marsupial. You know, it's not in the musculus. And she doesn't get that because she's looking at it else. Well, in fact, she cites this book by this idiot who just has a bunch of pictures of marsupial mouse, and then he's got the house mouse, and then he's got a few other examples like that. I think there was a cat or something.
So it's the title of the book. Come on. Come on. You don't believe that they're not really. Yeah. You don't believe they weren't intelligently designed. Come on.
Right. Yep. But anyway, this is a long video, and I'm hoping we can get to a few more parts. I'll see if I can itemize a few more parts for us. The misunderstanding. And okay, the overall, what is she saying? She's coming up with this weird idea that she knows she is smart enough to see over all of the PhD molecular biologists all across the world, all across the last 50 years, and she's smarter than them because she sees the truth and they don't. What is that called? Is that called a lack of humility?
It's definite bias. It's a teleological bias that she has, and she can't admit that it's a bias.
Right.
And it's thinking that, well, I can vibe things into truth. I can discover truth through the vibes. Oh, look at this simulation of a spliceosome doing its job or whatever. And she, quote unquote, sees intentionality in the fact that they move so confident and so fast. But that just may have been somebody playing that simulation in fast forward because you don't want a 3-hour process, on a video. You want it faster. So we don't even know that. Like the video she shows, which I know we're not showing that simulation to our viewers right now, but we will, I'm sure. But it shows how genes get, spliced, the exons being cut out and the introns being spliced together by the spliceosome. Is that how it's working? Right. She shows the simulation of it, and it's going in rather fast fashion. But the question is, does it really happen that fast, or that's a simulation they're seeing? It's not an actual video where somebody took a high-powered microscopic camera and just did it, in process, live. It's not a live video. It's a simulation. So
yeah, this is
or does it also not show, since it's a simulation, does it not show instances where the process just went kaput?
Yeah, this video does a pretty good job of showing the stochastic nature of these things bumping into each other, which I kind of like, but it's still not reality. You're not looking at an actual thing here. So you're looking at an intron being spliced out.
It's quite amazing. So, and I do have a religious agenda for doing this. I want to be honest about my religious agenda. My agenda is that I want you to know God. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people have been completely deceived by evolutionary storytelling that masquerades as science, and it blocks you from the main evidence that God has given everyone for his existence. When we look around at living organisms and at this orderly universe, it should automatically bring us to wonder and awe at the mind behind this. But unfortunately, some people have been taught these evolutionary stories and they've believed them so much that they can no longer see the evidence for God, and they wonder, where is the evidence for God? Okay, Nestlig, thank you for joining. How are you?
In 50 years, once the science has developed and improved, those simulations that we're seeing might be considered outdated, and some other model might be used to explain alternative splicing or to demonstrate alternative splicing. That's the thing. You have to go to war when you have a religious belief to change your stories. And then you change your story and then never admit that you changed the story. Right. And that's the nature of religion. Her religion is building on myths in the Hellenistic world that built on other myths from a more ancient world like Mesopotamian or even ancient India, and then or Indo-European mythology. It's made up story based on made up story based on made up story that is adjusted because of cultural pressure and political pressure. The stories, quote unquote, as she calls them in science, are explanatory narratives that
hypotheses.
They kind of hook together pure data with historical process. They're falsifiable. Rebekah's stories are not even falsifiable. The stories, the explanatory narratives will change once data has been interpreted and analyzed, and the explanatory narratives will change with the discoveries of science. Not so with Rebekah and her religious stories. So there's just a total world of difference between the language used in science to fill in gaps in papers and to talk about what happened or what they think happened. It's just a world apart, and it's a totally different thing. And that's why Rebekah is a spreader of misinformation, because she's trying to do a false equivalency between science and religion.
Well, she admitted it.
Yeah.
She admitted it. She wants science to prove God to us because she has no other way to prove it to us. She has even said herself, somewhere in her videos in the last couple of years, she said that if she found out evolution was true, she'd probably lose her faith. So she has no reason. And that's why they keep saying, oh, you can't shift the burden to me. When you ask me, well, if you're going to propose that God made the liver, then you're going to have to convince me that there is a God to begin with, right? And they get all flustered when you're shifting the burden. We're going to talk about evolution. And so they keep trying to punch holes in it.
They're accusing you of being against God and having a twisted, sinful mind, because that's what they do. All of the irrational defense mechanisms that humans have is taught as some sort of dogma by religion. Like, I don't think I agree with what the church is saying. Well, the devil has twisted your mind and you're living to please the devil. Therefore, you can't be trusted and you can't trust yourself. Where the heck does that come from? That comes from the irrational coping mechanisms that have worked on people for multiple millennia and generations. It's just a bad way of thinking that you see all throughout the scripture. You don't agree with me, you're of the devil. You've been tempted. You've been twisted.
Yep. And when she says stories, okay, I think what she's doing is she's projecting. But the thing is, okay, if she asks me a question, how did the liver evolve? Okay, then I am going to have to come up with a hypothesis for how it evolved, right? And I'm going to have to start telling her about that hypothesis. And then she screams, oh, that's just a story. It's like, wait a minute. Okay, the hypothesis just lays out the broad steps with something, right? That you're looking at. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. And for each of these steps, you're going to start talking about a lot of things, and you're going to have a lot of little gradations in between that we may not know entirely, right? But when you ask, how did the liver evolve? I can give you a story, a hypothesis that's common, that the most accepted one. And sometimes you'll find like there's 2 or 3 different models for the evolution of these things. But because we don't know exactly what every goddamn step is, it doesn't mean that we can't drill down. Like if she wants to talk about this first step right here, I can drill down and give her more information and more information until, the cows come home. But she insists that we're assuming that our story is true. It's like, no, we're giving you the hypothesis. Now we're going to start giving you the details. And at the end of that, you can decide whether or not this is plausible or whether it has been falsified. So at some step in this hypothesis, in order for us to believe that there's an intelligent designer, you are going to have to come up with a really goddamn good stopping point that says this is impossible. And they never do that. They never talk about that detail. They never prove. They never give us the pudding, right? The proof is in the pudding. You're going to have to show me the impossible step. All they come up with is, oh, if you believe that, well, then I'll sell you some swamp in Florida. It's like bullshit. It's just on and on. Anyway, so yeah, maybe I'll outline my major complaints against Rebekah. But we're almost getting to an hour, Scott, and I want to end it. So anyway, so we have
make it just a half an hour, like we thought we were, but
yeah. We have IN Davenport, and we have Skyworks and Jasper, and a few other people, Dave, who just started watching, and now we're gonna end it. We almost feel bad about that. We have Dave, we have Captain Desk.
Hey, share this video with your other friends and compatriots, dear listener, so maybe they'll come back and watch the very short 50-minute video. And maybe we can get some numbers up.
And go to the description and watch my little video from yesterday. I have like 48 views on it, where I kind of like have some musings. Yeah, don't forget that. But the thing that I basically wanted to emphasize in the video yesterday is that I've got a lot of uncertainty and a lot of openness to tell me where I'm wrong, tell me what's wrong, because maybe, I mean, if Rebekah, an intelligent functioning human being, can be this wrong, then maybe I am too. But you're going to have to show it to me. You're going to have to tell me where I'm wrong. And, and I don't have this God belief to rely on. I've never had it. So I have absolutely zero evidence that there's anything like an intelligent designer out there. So anyway, okay, maybe we'll do some shorter ones on particular points that we'll draw to this video. But, I think at some point we got to pick a video, because she's putting out 1 or 2 a week. And she is just galloping us to death. And anyway, want to end it, Scott?
You know, I just want it to go on and on and on, but I think we need to end it and
yeah, we do.
Plan another video, you know, tomorrow or Monday or whenever. I don't know when I'm going to have to keep the grandkids next week, but sometime when I'm not having to keep them.
Okay. Okay, so I think we will kill it with that. So I wonder if I have any kind of an outro. I don't know.
Thank you, viewers, for joining us, and thank you to those who participated in our side chat.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, goodbye, cruel world.